Today I'm going to teach you all about how authors create powerful, elaborative detail to make their stories really come alive. What makes a book hard to put down? The stories we love all have powerful, vivid, elaborative detail. That's what helps them come alive. So how can you add detail to a story? By adding describing words like adjectives. So if I start with the sentence, I looked at the sky, and I add in the word blue, what do you think? Is that good enough? But which blue sky? Just saying blue isn't enough. All of these different windows represent a different kind of blue sky that it could be. When you are using elaborative detail to create the setting for the reader, you want to be really, really specific so that you can show them exactly what you mean and give them a picture in their heads. So when an author uses elaborative detail, they kind of stop the story action to describe three really important things: the story critical character, the story critical setting, and the story critical object. Here's elaborative detail on our narrative writing diamond. It's right near the top because these three things, character, setting, and object, need to be established right away. So 3 things to know. Number 1, authors identify story critical characters, settings, and objects. They use specific instead of general details. And the way that they come about finding these elaborative details is through asking themselves detail-generating questions. So again, authors describe story-critical characters, settings, and objects using elaborative detail. So for the story Sylvester and the Magic Pebble, the author describes the story-critical character, Sylvester, the story-critical object, the pebble, and the story-critical setting, which is the countryside. In Stregonona, there's 3 different things. So the story-critical character would be Stregonona herself, the setting, and the object. If this was your story plan, which character, setting, and object might you describe? This story is about my new pet bird. The problem was that I left the cage open and she flew away. The problem was solved when I left the window open and made a trail of seeds to her cage and she came back. So read this story plan. Name the story critical character, setting, and object. The child stomped through the water wearing bright yellow boots. The character is the child. The setting is the water, and the object are the bright yellow boots. Now let's learn the difference between general and specific details. It's like the difference between these 2 drawings of these birds. So an author might write, I have a cool pet bird. Now close your eyes and imagine this bird. Which bird is it? What does cool tell the reader? Not really anything. So when we're writing elaborative detail, we want to avoid general adjectives. And general adjectives are adjectives that don't really tell us a lot about the character, the object, or the setting. So like awesome, or great, or bad, or nice, or pretty. They don't really give us a lot of information. Now read this description. My bird has an orange beak, a bright blue head, and a red chest. Her back is covered in bright green feathers. Now do you know which bird we're talking about? So which description is better? The specific description that gives you all of these details, or the general description? If you said this one, you're right. Now let's get into detail generating questions. Authors ask themselves these detail generating questions when they're writing a story to come up with all the different details that they're going to give to make their character really come alive. So here are some questions that an author might ask themselves when they're writing about their critical character. How tall or big is this character? What color hair does he have? How old is the character? What kind of eyes or nose or mouth or ears did she have? What kind of color of hair did they have? What kind of marks or scars or distinguishing characters did they have? What was he or she wearing? What kind of expression was on his or her face? How did this character make you feel? Who or what did this character remind you of? Answering all of these questions, or even just a few of these questions for your reader, gives your reader a picture of the character that you're writing about in their head. You can also do the same thing with the setting. When you're writing about where the story is taking place, you can ask yourself the questions: what was the temperature or the weather like? What kind of trees or plants grew there? How did the air feel? What kind of animals were there? What kind of buildings were there? What kind of objects were around? What kind of sounds did you hear? How did you feel about being there? What did you smell? Lastly, there's also questions to ask about a story critical object. So when you're writing about something that's really, really important to your story, again, you can ask yourself all these questions that lead you to create all these details about the object you're writing about. What color was it? What did it feel like? What was its shape? What size was it? How old was it? What was it made of? What did it smell like? What kind of sound did it make? How heavy was it? Who did it belong to? Where did it come from? What did it remind you of? You might not answer all of these questions. You might pick out the questions that are most important to your story and answer those ones for your reader. But answering a couple of these can give your reader a really good picture in their head of the object that is important to your story. We're going to learn together how to use these questions to create some really, really good characters, settings, and objects. So let's review. Authors describe story-critical characters, settings, and objects. Authors use specific detail, never overly general adjectives. And third, authors always use detail-generating questions to add specific detail to their stories. Here's an example of all the detail-generating questions that you could use.